Hey everybody, welcome to another Fun in 5. Today I'm bringing you Spirit Island. This is a game by Eric Roos, if I'm saying that correctly. This is a cooperative settler destruction strategy game for 1 to 4 players. Cooperative. So I played this probably half a dozen times now and experimented with a couple of different characters and had a lot of fun trying to save this island from these invaders that are trying to take over. And so I'll talk about 5 things that I've liked about it in my experiences so far. First off, I enjoy the theme of this game. This is very different than many other games I've played, in that often you're dungeon crawling or you're playing abstract city games or trading spices. This game is much, much different. It's pandemic-esque, but with the whole layered theme of spiritual elements that are trying to protect this island from these dangerous invaders that are trying to take over. They're trying to pillage. They're trying to get rid of the inhabitants that are here. They're trying to build these cities and communities and just completely abolish our island. And so these spirits are trying to defend it as best they can, and they're really overpowered at first by these dangerous invaders. But over time, the spirits become more and more powerful, and you feel that thematic, overwhelming kind of sense of hope that you can actually repel these invaders from taking over your island. So it's neat that you are defending this imaginary place from these imaginary invaders that has no real correlation to the real world, but it still gives you a sense of accomplishment when you survive and when you repel those invaders. So I really enjoy that theme, and it's layered throughout. The different elementals are pretty neat. The invaders, they're very basic. There's no different styles to them, but they still have a threat to them. And there's a bit of theme going on when you look through the elemental cards as well, or the powers that you can get, or the cards that each character has. So I really like the theme overall of what you're trying to do to protect your island. The second thing I like is the asymmetrical characters. So you have your choice of, I don't even know how many, I think 2, 4, 6, 8 different characters, I think, for this game. And so each player gets to pick one to be, and the characters are very different from one another. They each start with their own starting hand of 4 different spirit cards, and those cards have different strategies to them. But also on the boards, which I'll bring up on the screen, the boards each have different mechanisms on them. So they might have different sequence in which they get energy or income that they can spend. They might have a different amount of cards that they can play a turn, depending on how much presence they get on the board. They have different powers that are activated if enough elements are in the spells or cards that they play. And again, the starting hand that you have all play out just a little bit different. Some of these spirits will be more focused on actually directly attacking the invaders. Some of these spirits will be reliant on manipulating the Dohad, the original inhabitants of the island. Some of these spirits will invoke extra fear into the enemies and help trigger a different game-winning mechanic. And some of these spirits may just really help enhance other spirits and help with that cooperative type of thing. But every one of the spirits plays just a little bit different, and they even grade them on how complex they are. So on the bottom of the back of the cards, it'll tell us if there's low complexity or medium or high complexity. It'll tell you if they're offensive or controlling or utility-based. So it really goes into the thought process that went into this game when you look at the character builds. An even better thing that I think they added in this game is an alternative kind of a card building mechanic where it suggests kind of a mini deck that you can grow your own character with instead of randomly picking the top 4 cards of the deck and taking one. So I really like that. It's kind of its own built-in strategy for each character based on cards that you can pull out of these minor and major powers. I mean, there's so much in this game to explain that I can't really dive into all of that, but I do like the character asymmetry and the special uniqueness that you can apply through the pre-built deck kind of construction or hand growth that you can do in the game. All right, so that's the second thing that I like. The third thing I like about this is that it's a true cooperative game, but it's a bit less alpha gamey. So if you've played games like Pandemic or other really cooperative based games, sometimes one player will really try to dictate what happens around the table. And of course, everybody can kind of talk through it and prevent that from happening. But this game really does give you so much going on with your own character, with your own cards, with your own energy management, with your own superpowers that it's really hard to have one player watch what's happening with every other player and try to tell them what to do. You really have to rely on each player thinking hard about their own strategy, trying to support each other, and also trying to repel the invaders. The main tabletop comes in talking about where the biggest threats are right now, what's happening on the board, where they're going to build next, where they're going to ravage next. That's, I think, where most of the game talk comes in, and it's more about what can we do together to try to stop them, but then each player has their own individual way to contribute that's not so much managed by other players. So I really like that cooperative aspect. But in the end, you're all trying to accomplish the same thing together. You were trying to work together to stop the invaders, either by completely annihilating everything on the board, which is really hard, or progressively there can become different strategies to winning. But I'll talk about that in a moment. We'll get on to point number 4. Point number 4 is that this game has a constantly persistent threat to the game. And it starts at the beginning because the invaders already start with a foothold on your island, depending on how many players there are. And they start with communities, they start with little towns, and they start with invaders all on the map. And you can always see how they're going to progress. But as the game progresses, they have these invader cards, and even though the first couple rounds just have them invading one land type or terrain, as the game progresses, they're going to go into 2 land types. And that becomes really hard once they're kind of attacking 4 or 6 land types in a turn. So what started off as manageable becomes even harder throughout the game. But what's neat is as these enemies become persistently stronger, if you're doing your strategy right, you also become stronger, even more so than them, and you can actually find a way to win. But you never feel truly safe in the game until you're on the verge of winning, and I think that's a good sign of a good cooperative game. Again, Pandemic does it very well also, but this kind of takes it to a different level because of your own individual superpowers and kind of an economies of scale type of thing. All right, and that brings me to my 5th thing that I like about the game, and that is one of the mechanics of it, and that mechanic is the fear mechanic. And I like it for a couple different reasons. First off is the game starts with a certain amount of fear tokens depending how many players there are, and you will generate fear into the invaders when you destroy their communities or their cities, and these are really neat because how they track as points, but you'd have to read the rule book for that. But fear, once you get 3 total fears sequence, it increases their terror level, and it makes and changes their victory condition. So at the beginning of the game, your victory condition is that you have to destroy all invaders, all towns, and all cities. If you get to terror level 2, you only have to destroy the towns and cities. If you get to terror level 3, as long as you destroy all the cities, you win the game. And if you get rid of all of the fear cards, you create so much fear that you just win the game by fear alone, regardless of what they have on your island. So I really like that. But the fear mechanic is duplicitous, if that's a word, in its impact, because not only does it have an end game effect, every fear card, when you trigger it, also has a game immediate effect on the invader's turn. And that effect is escalated by what level of fear or terror they're at right now. And so I thought that's really neat how they use the fear mechanic as kind of a triple slam. First off, immediate effect on the board when the invaders attack. Second effect is that it can lower the win condition to make it easier for you and your team members to win. And the third thing is it can actually be a win condition of its own, which a character like the Bringer of Dreams and Nightmares really helps you win with. So it's really, really cool how they layered that on it and kind of changed how you can win the game based on how you play with that one fear mechanic. Really cool. There's so much more I could talk about with the game. There's so much involved with it in terms of how you manage your resources, manage your cards, manage your game state, manage the Dohan, which are your the original inhabitants. You could go on and on about this game. There's a reason that this is a very highly recommended cooperative game, solo game, and multiplayer game. I mean, it plays on all points. I've played it solo a couple times as well, and really like how it constantly keeps me thinking. I've tried it playing two-handed and one-handed, and it's fun either way, and definitely always a challenge. We lose this game more than we win, but it still comes back to the table because it's so interesting and strategic and fun to play, and so much replayability because of the characters and the way the different cards and decks play out. A lot of replayability in that. But there you have it. If you've played Spirit Island and you have any thoughts about it, by all means put them in the comments, or share this video if you want other people to hear about this awesome game. I really highly recommend it. It has a high price tag, but I think it has a lot of value on your table. And thanks as always for watching. Subscribe, share, do what you want to do, and we'll see you next time. Take care.